So the internet has a substantial influence on economic growth and enables transformation in both public and the private sector for all types of organization, not just online players, and regardless of an organization size. Africa, as you know, has made tremendous steps into economic development with GDP growth, rapid urbanization, expansion in consumer spending power, and unprecedented business interest and investment. As you know, everybody wants to come and invest in Africa. China, India, US, Europe. Despite these optimistic signs, Africa still lags behind the internet adoption. So this is today the topic that we are going to discuss, the digital divide, the technology gap that is within the same country, within the same continent, within the same world, with the rich and the poor, urban, rural areas. As you know, as Kevin has said, the internet penetration revolution in Africa will be through mobile because smartphones are those small and special devices that is accessible for everybody today. It does not cost that much as opposed to a laptop or a machine that needs to be in your house, plugged somewhere. So we can access the internet with 3G, 4G, now 5G is coming. So maybe we can start discussing, Kevin? Yes, okay. We have today a great panel who will give us insights from different sector perspectives. We have tried to get people from different sectors to talk about those issues. So I'll go and sit among those gentlemen as I am the only lady. So from my right left, I have Patrick René. No longer. He's a CTO, and he will give us the perspective from a different kind of technology solution tools. I also have Jimmy Limfok. Johnny. Sorry. Johnny Limfok, who is from Orange and Mauritius Telecom, who, as you know, is one of the leading internet service provider in Mauritius, among the others. On my left, there is Alan Barrett, the CEO of the Afrinic, the African Network Information Sector. And on the very far right, Mr. Kalim, who is from CERT and ANSIBI. So my very first question will be for Mr. Johnny Limfok from an ISP perspective. So will differences in connection technology, quality and level of internet openness lead to different internet experience and level of opportunity for users in the future? We've seen that Orange, Mauritius Telecom has already given the fiber. You have many different kind of network. Tell us more about it, please.
Yeah, so definitely, I think the digital divide is also about the disparities on the performance of internet service that one get at home. So nowadays you have services which are like richer media services. You have lots of videos going on. Video traffic we see that is on the rise all the time, and it is even being said that by 2020, 80% of all internet traffic would be video traffic. Nowadays, when you search something on the internet, you tend to search it on YouTube, for example. I give you a personal experience, like for myself, I'm trying to learn the guitar, for example. So when I try to, if I hear a beautiful song that I would like to play on the guitar, I don't Google it anymore. I just go directly on YouTube and try to find a video that would teach me how to play that song. So those videos nowadays are, you know, like bandwidth hungry applications, right, coming in. So if you have a slow internet connection at home, then you might not, it would be harder for you to get those contents. So as an ISP, so what is like Mauritius Telecom doing to bridge or to reduce that different digital gap? So back in 2015, when our CEO took office, he took the bold step to accelerate the deployment of fiber, as you mentioned, in Mauritius. So right now we have about 98% of households which are ready to be connected on fiber. And the penetration is about 65%. So when you move from, say you have 1 megabit per second on copper before, when you migrate into fiber, you migrate to 10 megabits per second, and at the same price. If you had a 2 megabits per second, for example, you're migrated to 20 megabits per second. So by giving fiber to everyone, we allow people to get access to those rich contents, which otherwise would have been very difficult on a slow copper internet line.
Okay, Kevin has just told me that Alice Munia has joined us. So without further ado, I would like to invite Alice to say a few words to the Mauritius node. Alice, the mic is for you.
I put you another browser.
These are the small inconvenience of direct live. So, Johnny.
Yes.
So you have a lot of pressure from consumer, right? Because before it was the network that was driving the internet. And now that you just said, it's the consumer that is deciding what they want to have as a content coming into their house. So it's putting a lot of pressure on ISPs. And I guess that we are choosing today what we want to look. We don't want to read, to go online and read. Oh, Alice is there. Hi, Alice. We can
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello, everyone. Hi, everyone. How are you?
We can't hear you. They are trying to fix that.
Okay.
Now we can. Say hi.
Hi, how are you? How is everyone? Good to see you all. And my apologies for interrupting, so I'll let you continue and then I'll interject when you have a moment for me. Thank you very much, Vilmala, and good to see everyone. Hello from Los Angeles. Please continue.
Okay, thank you, Alice. You want to say a few words and then we continue the panel, or?
My apologies.
Okay, you just can go ahead and tell. Thank you. So Alice Munia is an ISOC board member and she is actually in Los Angeles, if I understand well?
Yes, we are in Los Angeles at the moment, yes.
Okay, Alice, the floor is yours. How is the weather in Los Angeles?
Pretty warm, thank you very much. And how is the weather in Mauritius?
Not that good today, but it's okay.
Yes, a shout out from me from Los Angeles, and to thank you all very, very much. We are so very thrilled to be celebrating the 25 years of advocacy in advancing an open, global, secure internet. And I wish to thank you all for being part of the Internet Society community and for contributing so much towards our shared mission. So I'll just listen in and perhaps interject and join in the discussions as they continue. So Vimala, back to you. And thank you very much for allowing me to say a few words.
Thank you, Alice. Okay, so back to us. I'll take the question after, if you don't mind. So please note the question to the panelists that you want to have the question addressed to. So, Johnny. Light is on you again, as I was saying. So it's putting a lot of pressure on you network operators now, because it is us consumers who are driving the content that we want. And we want more local content. I guess this also is putting a lot of pressure on the different internet service providers, mobile operators that are in Mauritius, will get to my next question. So we are still on how to bridge this digital divide, even if in Mauritius we don't have that much of technology gap. We are a small island as opposed to many other countries in Africa. Yet there are many places in Mauritius who do not have good internet access. Like when I go to my mom who is in Catrebon, I have to say she has a very good high-speed internet, and I live in Tamarin. And sometimes I have to go like this in my house to have internet. So what are the local disparities in the quality of access and open access? That is connection speed, restricted use platform, mobile only access, etc.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So when you're saying that you're going here and here to have access, I guess that's you're on a Wi-Fi environment. Okay, so on the Wi-Fi environment, yes, you need to be very careful on how you position your laptop with respect to the access point that you're connected to. Sometimes if you're too far away, you can't get a very good access, and that could affect badly on your internet experience. But we can talk later about how to resolve your problems. Yeah, you mentioned something about content. There's not much local content, and that's true. So we've seen that most of the contents that Mauritian people view, they are mostly from the United States and also from Europe. But unfortunately, Mauritius has been geographically far away from those places. We are very far away from Europe and even United States even more. So the latency for Mauritius is we are at a disadvantage, I would say. So since we're far away, the latency is much higher than compared to someone who is surfing in those countries where the contents are. So what we're trying to do is we're trying at Mauritius Telecom to bring those contents closer to our local users. So what we do, we're trying to, as much as we can, to bring like CDNs, what we call content delivery networks like Akamai, Facebook, Google, Netflix, all those services to have their servers in Mauritius, and we do have those in Mauritius right now. So just to increase to give our users a better quality of experience when they go to those services.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. What I was thinking maybe about the internet exchange point to bring traffic local, increase resiliency, reduce latency, and cost also for customers. That brings me to the second panelist, Patrick René. I want you from a data center perspective. My question would be, what are the power and other requirements for internet infrastructure and technology deployment, putting the developing world at a competitive disadvantage?
Thank you, and thanks for letting me say those words here. Well, your question, to get to the point, would be simply, it's a matter of will and not a matter of how much. And as it is in Mauritius, there's nothing that's stopping us from doing it. It is just a matter of who will do it first. And why are we still not doing it? And we are, at the end of 2017. I think it's time to just wake up again, a wake-up call again, and just move. What's the internet about? It's just, sharing. If we don't share, we are just consumers. And what you were saying about data centers, there are data centers in Mauritius. There is an internet exchange point. There has been attempts to even get more exchange points up and running, but it's just a matter of, sharing. I think the most important point here is just people and not technology. The technology is there. The technology is moving very quickly. But Mauritius is adapting. I mean, there's not a real shortage of, the technology gap is not that wide if we want to put Mauritius in perspective to many other countries. But as Johnny was saying, at the incumbent provider there, they are doing all they can, but they shouldn't be the only one doing it. I think it's, in my opinion. I don't know if you'll share that, but if we are pushing, if everyone is pushing, it's going to move. It's going to roll at one point in time, and the digital divide will never close. I mean, there's always going to be something there. There's always going to be a gap, but the shorter the gap, the better it is, in my point of view.
Thank you, Patrick. You have already answered to my second question, which was, is the data center infrastructure within Mauritius in need of expansion to meet the demand of the internet of the future? So then my second question would be, but how? How to make people understand that competition is good for business? Because the more we compete, it benefits consumers. And even if you are business enterprise owners, you are also consumers. So more competition is good for business. So how can we make people understand that internet exchange points are good? It's not competition. When you will go through this internet exchange point, your other competitor will not steal your clients. These are the things I think you wanted to raise. So what can be put in place? What can be done for people to understand that we need to join hands holistically and not be competitively disadvantaged? Because I'm talking from a consumer perspective. I cannot do much to push you do that.
Well, I think what you already said is in part the answer. I mean, when you put in perspective those that should be participating in this exchange point, they need to put aside the fact that they have their clients already, and they can build up on those clients by providing a better service, by exchanging, by having local routes, by having a better service through that. But how do we do that? Well, I don't know. I mean, people are technologically learned enough to understand the fact that an exchange point is not a bandwidth hogging site, and the bandwidth is there. I mean, local bandwidth can be shared, but content has to be shared as a prime directive, if I may say that, if I may use that word. By sharing it locally, that would help, I would say, alleviate one important point, which I always have in mind. What would happen if we were to be cut off from the rest of the world? Would there still be internet in Mauritius? So maybe that, by putting that question forward, that would make people understand that we need to start sharing locally first, and then we'll get to the rest of the world.
Thank you. Maybe we will get from satellite, but that will be very expensive. Which brings us to the next person, Alan Barrett, the CEO of Afrinic. Afrinic being the Internet Registry for Africa. So we allocate and distribute Internet member resources. We are here since 10 years already. My question to Alan would be, will countries that are ahead in Internet technology, infrastructure, and innovation simply accelerate their lead in the future, or will developing regions equalize the gap? You can use this mic.
Thanks, Bimala. That's a really tough question. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not that good at predicting the future. Otherwise, I would go and make a fortune on the stock exchange or something. But usually, there is an advantage to the first mover. Somebody who gets started in some industry first gets ahead early, and very often, but not always, they can keep that lead. But also often there's an advantage to the latecomers. There's the opportunity to leapfrog in technology. So, for example, in Africa, we might have been very far behind other parts of the world in copper, landline, telephone technology, very low penetration. But we don't care about that today because we have mobile. Africa is actually doing very well in mobile penetration. And so the same can happen in the internet era. So if we go back, say, 15, 17 years to about the year 2000, around the whole world, the internet penetration was about 5%. Today, it's about 51%. It's multiplied by 10 in the 17 years since the year 2000. What's happened in Africa? It's multiplied by 85. So the whole world internet penetration went up by a multiple of 10 from 5% to 51%. In Africa, we've multiplied by 85 over the same time period from less than 1%, way behind the rest of the world, to 31%, a little bit behind the rest of the world, but not so bad. And there are countries in Africa which are leaders. So the world average is 51% internet penetration. So that means 51% of the population, of the people living in Africa, have some kind of internet access. And that might be through their work, that might be through their mobile phones. So we've seen a sustained growth rate in Africa of 30% every year, 30%, 30%, 30%. And at that growth rate, you double in less than 3 years, and you multiply by 85 in 16 or 17 years. So we certainly have the opportunity of catching up with the rest of the world. The growth rate in North America has been the slowest. In the year 2000, North America's internet penetration was the highest in the world, and it probably still is. But in the last 17 years, since the year 2000, they've only multiplied by 3, while Africa's multiplied by 85. So there's a really good growth, and we do have the opportunity of catching up. We have the opportunity of leapfrogging using mobile technology instead of copper landlines. We see fiber deployments going in all over Africa. It's taking off really fast. So we might never catch up 100%, but we're not always going to be way behind. And we do have the possibility of overtaking. We've certainly got some countries in Africa that are leaders. Mauritius is doing pretty well. If I can find my, here we go. Mauritius has an internet penetration of 62%, which is above the world average. Kenya and South Africa also have internet penetrations above the world average. Morocco is sitting about the same as the world average. But on the other hand, we do have countries in Africa which are far behind. Eritrea sitting there at 1.3%. I hope they can catch up.
So within the same continent, we can see that there is a great digital divide and a great gap. So if we achieve a world where everyone has internet access, with all segments of society have an equal opportunity to meaningfully participate in the benefit from the internet. So what will happen, even if we have that?
Internet access and technology enables so many things. There's no business of any size, more than a few people that doesn't use the internet in some way, either to sell their products, to advertise, to find customers, to do research. It's central to so many things that we do today. And so I would say what's important is not just access, but development, efficiency. So it's not enough just to have internet access. We should have competition to drive down the prices. We should have internet exchange points to improve performance. And it's not enough just to connect at an internet exchange point. We need internet service providers who are competing with each other, nevertheless to cooperate in exchanging traffic at an exchange point. What would happen if Mauritius got disconnected from the rest of the world? How would our internet access work? I don't really want to try that experiment because I'm afraid that the answers might not be very good. But there are ways to mitigate that. We have already copies of the DNS root zone. So if Mauritius was disconnected from the rest of the internet, you could still do domain name system lookups. You could still translate those names that you type into your browser into the numeric IP addresses that work behind the scenes, but not for the whole world, only for those zones which have very widely distributed infrastructure, and there are a few of them. Would we still be able to access the content that we like, the cat videos on YouTube and the movies and TV series on Netflix? Well, maybe some of them, but not all, because the providers of that content do try very hard to distribute their content. They put servers in the internet exchange points and data centers in Mauritius and in most other countries. But I don't know how much they test what would happen if they got disconnected. So, Vimala, probably not really answering your question, but I want to emphasize that it's not enough just to have access. You've got to look for efficiency and growth and resilience against infrastructure failures.
Thank you, Alan. And I think that I may add to that, that even if we have the greater access, we need government involvement, ICT strategy, open access. And I think most of you have filled your tax, and it was really an advantage for me to have it through the e-services of the MRA. And I think that adoption of ICT regulation and keeping it open is also a very crucial aspect of digital divide and bridging all the gaps that we have today in the internet. So which will bring me to Kalim Usmani. Kalim, I will ask you a question about the local security perspective, because you're coming from the CERT, Computer Emergency Response Team, and from the NCB, the National Computer Board. So what are the divides in the preparedness for an ability to use evolving internet technologies, such as, you know, today we are talking about the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence. So from this perspective, thank you. You may use the mic on this.
Thanks, Vimala, for the question. And of course, coming back to the cybersecurity landscape of the country. So once we are talking about the emerging technologies, once we are talking about, for example, Internet of Things, we are talking about, let's say, for example, blockchain. So really what the government is doing, and then what CERT is doing to look at that, how normally we can provide a kind of a platform, and then the strategies around with which we will be able to protect, let's say, of course, the threats onto these kind of, let's say, the devices which we use into this kind of network, for example. So what normally we did is that we are talking about the National Cyber Security Strategy, which we have finalized in 2014. And then, of course, I mean, this strategy talks about that how we will be able to, let's say, have that kind of, let's say, implementation where all these number of devices which are connected onto the, let's say, internet, they could be protected. For example, if I talk about from the National Cybersecurity Initiative, for example, we are talking about botnet tracking and mitigation. So surely, because if we say that we are talking about Internet of Things, and then the number of devices, they are, let's say, connected on a daily basis. And even there's a slow trend basically in Mauritius. Of course, I mean, that's into the adoption stage where, let's say, businesses and the organizations, they are trying to adopt the Internet of Things, and of course, I mean, those kind of devices. So surely, once we are having this kind of a system in place, this will allow us in order to check the threats onto these kind of devices. So from the security perspective, this is something, again, what we are working on, and this is very much is a part of the National Cyber Security Strategy, which is under implementation. This is one point. Now, again, if we look at the bigger picture where we are seeing that how either Internet of Things or any other emerging technology that could be, let's say, taken from the perspective, let's say, the security perspective, then again, there is something PKI ecosystem into the country. So it means that that PKI ecosystem, that's the public key infrastructure ecosystem, and then surely that's already, let's say, implemented, and that's there under, let's say, operation since 2012. And then this is, of course, this has to be, picked it up, and then the organizations, they should be starting to use more and more, so that this could, of course, will be providing a kind of a trust between the communications which will be taking place between the devices, and then how it could be secure. Now, having said that, and talking onto the Internet of Things, surely, because the challenge, one of the challenge basically, which we have right now on the Internet of Things devices, then whether these devices are really safe or not. So testing is one of the component, and based onto that, into our national cyber security strategy, what we have proposed again is to come up with a national test bed. And this national test bed, surely what it will do is that it will allow the organizations in order to test those devices if there are, let's say, these devices are secure or not. So I think these are, for example, the initiatives which the government has taken, on the basis of which normally we'll be able to handle that content of threat. Because why, if we look at internet, for example, internet penetration is really good, because if we talk about a population of 1.2 million, and then if we look at the stats today, we are nearly having 800,000 people who are connected to the internet. And of course, even the broadband penetration is increasing on a daily basis. So this is again there, and then even the government is talking about the blockchain technology, and then a blockchain technology again will be helpful in order to, let's say, have the businesses, their data intact and secure. So I think these are the quick initiatives which we are having and working in the area of, let's say, cyber security. Yeah.
Thank you. You've just mentioned blockchain. I guess you will mention also Bitcoins. Those are the things that I hear. But, with the deployment of IPv6, I think it will help also the take-up of Internet of Things. So how important will online security be for the Internet of the future? I guess it will be very important. So I've answered the question, but I want more insight from you.
Basically, if we, Mamala, look at the security landscape, because security is, of course, is the key part into the technologies and the organizations who are adopting the technologies. It cuts across, in every business and in everything, whatever we do. And normally what is happening, since the threat landscape is, of course, evolving, and if normally we look at the case of, let's say, the recent attacks in May and June, if we are talking about WannaCry, and if you're talking about Petya. So of course, that has changed the total landscape of the countries in terms of the, let's say, cyber threats. And surely the countries, they had to be more proactive. And in that case, what the Mauritius is doing is that we are talking about, let's say, implementing a national level cyber threat monitoring system. And then, of course, this particular threat monitoring system, what it will do is that it will allow us to have the monitoring of the threats at the real time and respond to those threats accordingly. So I think this is one. And then secondly, at the level of the organizations, these organizations, they have to be more proactive. And I think if we talk about, let's say, online threats, what is the key here right now is the education at all levels, right from the C level back to the, let's say, the technical and the operation level, where unless or until people, they are not really, let's say, sensitized and educated that how they will be able to prevent their organizations, let's say, critical assets, that's data, then surely it will be very, very difficult for them to manage how they'll be able to protect their data. And this is the reason, again, what countries they are doing is that they are coming up with a national, let's say, training strategies. And especially what it talks about is that it talks about the training at the different levels, right from, let's say, the executive level and the professional trainings, as well as the basic and general trainings for people to, let's say, practice how they'll be able to protect their, of course, access to their resources. Thank you.
Thank you. We are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Internet Society, that is the Internet Today, and I have two kids, and if you can give them any device, they will set it up. And you have our perspective. We are not very much in the room. What I would like, if you can introduce each of you and say a few words what you think about the digital divide, give your opinion, because sometimes it's not easy to give question or to give your thoughts because we are sitting here. There is like a gap between us. So if somebody can take the mic, move it around, you introduce yourself, because we have introduced ourselves. We don't know you, and you just give your point of view and your insights on how we can bridge this digital gap, this technology gap. Can somebody, Avi? Okay. Okay, I'll start with you.
That's a surprise. Yes, hello, my name is Jochen Kierstetter. I'm in the function of the founder and maintainer of the Mauritius Software Craftsmanship Community, or short MSCC. Since 2013, we are inaugurated here in Mauritius. We are actually focusing on the software development of things here on the island. And we are also organizing an annual developers conference. Regarding the divide here in Mauritius, with my experience of now more than 10 years being in Mauritius, and coming from Europe, I'm still, after all these years, surprised to see that there is actually the lack of local routing, local content, and the problem of the resiliency, because just back in July, we had a situation that one major ISP was literally disconnected from the internet, and more or less the majority of their customers and consumers were completely off the records, off the grid. And this is something that definitely should be improved. And as it was mentioned by Mr. René, the technology is there. It's just the people that need to talk about. And this is also comparing it with our own activities at the MSCC. Sharing is caring, and we having a success given this model that we are actually getting people together into the same room from different backgrounds and let them talk and exchange with their experience, let them network in order then to achieve greater than what a single person would be able to achieve. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ish, and I'm from LSL Digital. Well, to start, I would like to pick up from what Johan just said. It's we have to involve the community. And when I say community, I'm speaking about the internet consumers and businesses and everyone. Whenever there are major decisions about internet in Mauritius, be it having more internet exchange points, having more regulations, or anything regarding to internet governance in Mauritius, I think it is very important to include all the stakeholders, internet consumers, those who use internet at home, those who are watching videos about guitar lessons at home, and even those who are using internet in their business place. It's very important to have that.
Okay, as Munsami, I'm a board member of Afrinic. I'm going to comment as a personal comment. We are talking about digital divide. I think everybody has a smartphone in this room. Everybody is connected to the internet in this room. And if I step outside, there are taxi drivers. I'm sure they are using a smartphone, the internet, and they are on Facebook and on other social networks. So the digital divide, there's been some progress. It's not as significant as maybe 10 years or 20 years back. We've made some progress about it. Thank you.
If you don't want to talk, it's okay. Just introduce yourself.
All right. I'm Ismail Limalia from the National Computer Board. I think we all realize the importance of internet. Probably from our side, we are thinking that internet is going to revolutionize education. We're going to have more and more online courses. So I think this is going to be an important step because we have to educate our kids, whether it's through coding, whether it's through online lessons. I believe for the education sector, and to build up the youth to a level where we can, they're at ease in technology, I think internet should be available at much cheaper prices.
Thank you. I agree with that.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kavinen from the National Computer Board, business analyst. Very interesting debate going on there. And I appreciate one sentence from Johnny, who mentioned that the digital divide is not only about those who have internet and those who don't, but it's also about the performance, the speed. And this is absolutely right. Because if I'm not mistaken, the definition of broadband as per ITU right now is 256 kilobit per second. Just imagine if we raise this level up, let us say we are going to define broadband, let us say 10 megabits, because right now in Mauritius, everyone is having the 10 MB with the FTTH. So just imagine the gap that this will create on Africa. Because if we talk about the figures that Mr. Allen just mentioned, so I guess these figures are based on a broadband speed, which is very, very low. And if we still see broadband as 256 KB, then we need to start questioning ourselves. So I think that's where we need to focus, maybe the Internet Society and all. We need to debate about this. What happens if we, as per the ITU definition, we raise this definition up? Then just imagine yourself. Then this 31% for Africa, I'm not sure will be even by 12%. So we need to focus on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you want to talk?
I'm Jason, director of an ISP, Caldera, only for business. So regarding the digital divide, I think Mauritius has done a very great lots of improvements, like the MIXP, which is very good, like putting all the ISPs together. So myself, Caldera is working with Mauritius Telecom, EIS, all the local ISPs, and I think like everyone's saying, that's what we need to do as people, because everything is there. It's just like the mindset and the will to do so.
Thank you. You want to talk? So, yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Vic Boiru, Acting Executive Director, National Computer Board. Congratulations for achieving 25 years. And I was very impressed about what I read about the Information Society, and it showed that I attend this workshop. One comment regarding digital divide. We have, over the past years, seen lots of initiatives where people have been granted free internet access. Actually, the National Computer Board, with the support of Mauritius Telecom Foundation, set up about 300 computer clubs. Okay, and last year, Mauritius Telecom implemented 350, nearly 300 Wi-Fi hotspots. Actually, government now is working on 250 additional free Wi-Fi hotspots. This is to democratize access to the internet. That's fine. However, the demand of the user now is no more like a small capacity of internet. They are using intensively to download, a bit also to upload. And so there are many customers complaining about all the ISPs that what they require as an intensive internet user is not what the ISP can provide. I think there's a lot of awareness to be done to the community that in order for them to have a bandwidth which are offered in Europe or in Asia, there's a lot of investment, and this is not feasible for a small country like Mauritius. However, I am sure over the next few years there's a lot of development to be happening regarding the additional internet cables, okay, submarine cables. So I look forward to collaborate with all stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to say a few words?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ashwin Tulsi, also from National Computer Board. Just to add to what our director, I'd just like to stress on a few initiatives that NCB is doing. As you mentioned, as the world gets more and more digitalized, it's very important that people know how to use internet, how to use computers properly, and especially about the security part. So we at the National Computer Board, we've been involved in quite a few projects, namely what we call the UIP, which is a mass training, ICT training program. And we also operate free cyber caravans. And lately we've been reviewing the training programs that we offer into coding sessions. Because as we all realize that there are going to be more and more technology jobs available. We've collaborated with Afrinic lately on the Africa Code Week. And as Vic already mentioned, in terms of access, we also implemented the community empowerment programs. So these are a few initiatives just to bridge that digital divide from our side and just to part. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to say a few words?
Hello, I'm Sandeep from LSL Digital. So I would just like to touch on the point of local content. So I'm from a media company, La Sentinelle. We have a lot of content to distribute. Basically, we're a newspaper, online newspaper, and it's been hard to find a way to distribute content locally. It's much easier for us to like host outside and like videos and stuff. It's much easier to host outside today than having a local solution. So we would like that, but there is none that we can use today. Okay, and just a second point about digital divide. Since a few months, there has been a decrease in increase in latency in major websites such as Facebook, Google.mu, Google.com. I remember a few months ago, if you ping Google.mu, you would get 5-10 ms. Today you get 200 plus. So something happened. I don't know what. If that could be fixed soon.
Okay, I'll have somebody from the panel answer to that. Another question? No? Yes, comment.
Hello, I'm Yusuf from LSL Digital also. I just want to comment to what SM said earlier. A lot of people are already using the internet. The divide is not as prominent in Mauritius as it is elsewhere, so that's good. But the major divide we have is between us as a country and other countries. We lack the corporate IT culture that we have elsewhere because we do not have the presence of major players like Amazon, Google. If we had the infrastructure and the incentives to bring them to Mauritius, maybe build a data center here, we will be able to mingle with those people, to learn from them, and also become better as a country and decrease the gap between ourselves and Europe.
Thank you. A comment?
I'm Popiaya Ashvi, student at the University of Mauritius and currently president of one of the most active clubs in that university, the Computer Club. One way to bridge the gap between advanced countries and developing ones is to get more people involved into internet-related projects. We are currently organizing an IETF hackathon at the university this Thursday to implement codes of the Internet Society, like RFCs, and to get people more involved in these kind of projects. We would like to have them understand how to do such a thing and lead Mauritius to the path of where a university, a club can do anything they want. They can help people to code in real life projects. Thank you.
Have 7 more minutes.
Je vais prendre la parole en français. Je suis Bikash, le responsable commercial du groupe Rogers Capital. Donc, we are an ISP, an technological business solution. So, moi, je voulais tout simplement vous demander, j'ai l'impression que pour aller dans un sens plutôt scientifique, c'est qu'on n'a pas une véritable définition du mot gap. On est en train de parler du tout ce qui est digital gap, etc. Mais il va falloir avoir une forme de measurement. Donc, measurement du gap, measurement of, on parle comme ça, mais je dirais quelle définition de gap? Ça va dans tous les sens. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, la technologie est vaste. Je vois, on parle de bande passante, on parle d'adaptation, mais il faut vraiment définir le gap et ensuite voir le positionnement de l'île Maurice par rapport aux pays du Nord. Donc voilà un petit peu ce que je veux dire. Donc on a travaillé. Je me rappelle, je sais pas, l'île Maurice, une dizaine d'années de cela, c'était sur 56K. Ça a passé à 256. Aujourd'hui, tout le monde peut surfer sur un MB, etc. Mais dans le sens que si vous voyez les jeunes aujourd'hui, je vois de la famille qui vient de la France, etc. Mais ils parlent avec mon fils. Ils ont le même téléphone, ils ont le même application. Je vois pas trop de gap, mais il faut vraiment pinpoint où est le gap. Les applications que vous avez dans le monde se trouvent sur iOS, se trouvent sur Android. Tout le monde peut l'utiliser. Hein. Il y a un petit souci au niveau de la comment ça s'appelle, de tout ce qui est de la bande passante, mais l'utilisation est là. Et je peux vous assurer que si vous regardez un petit peu le chiffre d'affaires des grands groupes en termes de télécommunications, s'il y avait le gap, c'est que si l'île Maurice lag behind, le chiffre d'affaires n'allait pas et la profitabilité n'allait pas être à l'exponentielle. Merci.
Okay, you want to say a few words before I go back on the stage?
Hi, good morning. I'm Yanesh from MTEL. My comments will be around the IXP. So, like my friends on the left, they mentioned that we should be involved in the IXP training, etc. But I think most of us, like Johnny, my friend from Caldera, we have been in training in the IXP training. We understand the IXP, the purpose of the IXP. But today, why the IXP is not picking up? It's mainly because the decision makers, they are not involved, they are not aware, and I'm a bit disappointed because there's no one from the authority here, from ICTA. So I think we need to find a way to approach these people, the decision makers, and to get them involved and to get the consumers involved with them, for them to be aware the advantage and the purpose of the IXP. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have 5 more minutes to wrap up the session and have the cake cutting ceremony, which is much more interesting for some of us. So from what I have is we have Foundation for Unlocking the Internet Full Potential. Many of you have raised the government prioritization and support, that is clear strategy from regulators and government. We have also infrastructure, which include electricity supply and availability of secure internet servers. We also have the business environment, good competition and sharing of knowledge, because sharing is caring, as the person in front said. Human capital also has been raised, because if the internet is here and we don't train professional to use it and to enhance it, will not close this digital gap. Bikash spoke in French. So what he was saying was we have to define what is gap. It's a very big word. And yes, in Mauritius, we do not have that much of digital divide. But if you look at other countries in Africa, you can see because of the country size, there may have much more difficulties that in Mauritius. It's true that the internet, we have many service providers, we have competition, we have many companies that are here to work for openness. And also, what I've got is that ICT and internet connectivity promote efficiency, social and economic inclusiveness, and a new economy. I'll now pass the mic to my panelists for them to wrap up with a few words before we close this session and we get back to Los Angeles. Patrick?
Thank you. And just to conclude on what I've been saying all along, and as our friend there mentioned something about a gap, and we don't want to get into a gap analysis there, even though that could be done. But I would simply say that in order to close that gap, because there is a gap, there will always be a gap, we should be providing things and not using it. That would help maybe define what the gap is. Thank you.
Thank you. I would say that on the ISP side, by continuing to improve our network and connectivity, bringing contents locally, we hope that we make our increasing the quality of experience of our users. We hope that they feel that they are on the right side of the gap and not on the other side.
Thank you.
I think the gap is not so much in technology, but in the ease of access and the pricing of that technology. Here in Mauritius and in most parts of Africa, if you have enough money, you can buy fast internet access. But the problem is not that it's not available. The problem, I think, is that it's too expensive. What I could buy for $10 or $20 somewhere in Europe will cost me hundreds of dollars in Mauritius, or thousands perhaps. And that's a really big problem. It's not that we don't have the technology. And competition will improve that. And it's happening. Every year, the number of submarine cables connecting different parts of Africa to the rest of the world is increasing. There are always companies laying new cables, and the new ones always got 10 times as much bandwidth as the old one. And that's good. That will help us a lot. But we still don't have the competition that we need to drive down prices.
I think from the cyber security side, I think the threat preparedness is the key. And this is what organizations, they should be looking at. And then secondly, we have to build up the capacity around so that we are able to face those threats and address them. So surely what I need to say, let's say to close the session, is that we have to be better prepared, and then we have to look for so that the organization's infrastructure is safe and secure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.